Well, it's been nearly 2 months since widespread rioting broke out across the United States, and it's still going in some places. On Friday night, thousands of rioters swarmed a Christopher Columbus statue in the city of Chicago. Newly released aerial footage shows men dropping off weapons for the rioters, who later attacked the police. The police were vastly outnumbered by them. Black-clad rioters used umbrellas as shields and formed a line to march through the crowds. They pelted the police with rocks. They threw bottles at them. In the end, 18 police officers were injured, but only a handful of rioters were arrested. Meanwhile, in the city of Seattle, a beautiful place that's completely out of control, rioters brawled with police and destroyed more businesses over the weekend. Here's part of it.
Camera down, mother you.
200 miles to the south of Seattle, in Portland, Oregon, another beautiful city destroyed by the mob. Violent mayhem continued. It's been going on for 8 straight weeks. Political leaders in Portland are doing nothing to stop this. In fact, they're affirmatively taking the side of the rioters. This is the armed wing of the Democratic Party. These are their militia. They're blaming the police for the violence.
I want to also remind you that the police and the FBI have always put provocateurs in crowds for movement, right? Always. It's always been police acting as if they're community members, trying to start trouble, right? Because it gives them the authority to brutalize us.
That's one way of looking at it. Jason Rance is a Seattle-based radio host. He joins us tonight. Jason, thanks so much for coming on. You'll notice in the last clip we played, the politician described the rioters as, quote, us. It does seem like many politicians, the Pacific Northwest, Democrats, feel that these mobs are their supporters.
They are. This is the base that keeps these people in power. And it's not just in the Pacific Northwest, it's all across the country. We're seeing it unfold in Minneapolis, Chicago, Atlanta, New York, D.C. These are folks who are believers in the cause. Now, maybe some of them don't support the actual violence, but God forbid they actually speak out against the violence, because then they believe they're doing it a service to their cause. And so instead of acknowledging what's going on, you have these spineless politicians who want to pretend that, oh, no, it's totally peaceful. I don't know what you're talking about. Any of the violence is being done by the cops. Although in that case with Portland, with that clip, Antifa members are literally saying they were responsible for the violence against the police union office that they tried to burn down. This is not some provocateurs in the crowd doing this. In Seattle, you had a bunch of people who are basically marauding around town. They were going towards every single Starbucks and Walgreens and different businesses, trying to destroy them. This has nothing to do with George Floyd. This has everything to do with a devious ideology that's pushing Marxism and socialism. And the only way that they can get that is to break down the current systems of governance, of capitalism, of policing, and rebuild. And if they want to rebuild, they believe they have to get violent. And if not violent, they have to give the threat of violence to stop people from actually speaking up.
The cowardice and the complicity of elected officials is awe-inspiring. If these were Trump voters, armed, assaulting police officers, civilians, burning things, destroying property, tearing down statues, wrecking stores, looting, Do you think, would you stand by and say, you know, I roughly agree with these people politically, so I'm not going to say anything about it? Or would you stand up and tell the truth about it?
Yeah, you stand up and you tell the truth. This whole idea that you've got just a few bad apples in a larger group that's otherwise peaceful. I'm sorry, but if I'm part of a movement and you've got 20, 30, 40 people who are turning to violence for over 50 days in Portland, I'm not showing up and giving credence to that movement. I'm going to identify it for what it is. And too often, all across the country, whether it's Portland, Seattle, Chicago, or Atlanta, you've got a lot of people who are sitting back and saying, you know what? We are the silent majority. We're going to fight back. I'm sorry. It is unacceptable to remain the silent majority. We need to stand up. We need to be the vocal majority, and we need to start pushing back. It is unacceptable that we're allowing this kind of lawlessness take over American cities. And kudos to the Trump administration for sending in the federal law enforcement officials in Portland, hopefully soon in Chicago, and hopefully soon in Seattle, because if the city governments are going to step up, we can't sit back and allow this kind of nonsense. That's how you lose elections on a local level, staying silent. Right now, all of these protesters, they're not silent, are they? They're organizing. They're out there and they're recruiting members to their cause. Meanwhile, we're saying, oh, maybe I'll send out an angry tweet. It's got to be a little bit more than that. We need to get organized.
Yeah, because what you're watching is the Biden campaign in action, actually. So it's hard to know the answers, but I can't resist asking it. We've got an election in a few months in November. Does this just stop then? I mean, does Portland, does Seattle, does Chicago, does Atlanta, does Minneapolis, do these places ever go back to normal? I mean, when does this end?
The fear is that this is the new normal. And that's why we need to start speaking up and getting a little bit more engaged. Those of us, regardless of our political positions, simply deem it unacceptable to tear down cities, burn buildings down, riot and loot. If you don't stand up, why does anyone think this is going to stop? Violence begets violence. Lawlessness begets lawlessness, regardless of the city.
That's exactly right. That is absolutely a wise observation and always true. Jason Rantz, great to see you tonight. Thank you for that.
Thank you so much.
A lot of bad